What do you think makes Peruvian most proud of their country? According to a recent poll, number 1, our cuisine. Number 2, biodiversity. I'm one of those Peruvians that is proud of these things. I love explaining people why is it so special, because it's a melting pot of different cultures. Our Incan and Andean roots together with the influences from different migrations, Spanish, African, Japanese, Chinese. But we always didn't eat well in Peru. A couple of decades ago, we went through the worst economic crisis in our history. We had a hyperinflation of 9,000% per year. That also meant scarcity. We had to make long lines for everything to get our basic goods. That also meant that the only bread that was available and affordable was the government-produced bread, so-called popular bread. It was small, horrible, very difficult to eat. I still also have nightmares about that powder milk, also very difficult to drink and government-produced. But I was lucky. Many fled the country because they didn't see any future. Others were in even a worse situation. Terrorist groups wanted to do a revolution, but instead what resulted was 80,000 people killed or disappeared. Many people, millions, were displaced. But then the 90s came, the situation improved a little bit, but we still had an authoritarian government that was extremely corrupt. In the 2000s, things changed. Democracy came, and with it, high hopes for a big change. However, we were a country with a very low self-esteem after decades of crisis. But then one chef came, and many others joined. This chef, Gaston Acurio, shared with us something very important. We can be the best in the world with our cuisine. And that's what we needed to hear at that point, that we could be the best in something. So it created a movement. Many people joined, many people were paying attention, many people were proud of this symbol of patriotism, our cuisine. So we worked from different fronts on trying to make Peruvian cuisine the best in the world. I worked on that from the public sector for years. I was a civil servant for 10 years, working to promote economic development and innovation. As Vice Minister of Small Enterprises and Industries, and also in various other positions, I worked to make cuisine a driver for economic development. We provided technical assistance to small restaurants. We brought journalists from all over the world to taste Peru. We worked with chefs to create the first edition of a food fair that now is one of the most important in the world, called Mistura. And we did many other things. But why do I say that food can be a driver for change? It's because our food systems are globally broken. For years, for decades, humanity has produced and eat food in ways that harm our bodies, that pollute our planet, and that are unfair with workers. The US has exported its preference for sodas and for fast food, and now obesity and overweight is a problem globally. Here, in the state of California, there are strawberry fields where immigrant workers are treated almost as slaves. Agriculture is one of the main sources of climate change. Cows are worse than cars, polluting the planet because of our excessive beef consumption. And I can go on and on and on how food systems are broken. But how can we fix them? Barack Obama, when he started his presidency, tried to make a change. And I remember one line he told Dan Barber, a chef and activist on these issues. Show me a movement. Bring me a food movement so I can change this and I can defeat the asymmetry of power that a concentrated big industry tries to prevent change in the food system. For 8 years, the Obamas tried, but they made little change. They couldn't do it without a movement. That's what we have in some parts of Latin America. Movements like in Peru, the one I described, and in many other countries, there's a big potential to form these movements. In Mexico, I'm part of the Tortilla Alliance, a broad coalition of forces that works for corn and for tortillas as a basis for biodiversity and nutrition. In Bolivia, I worked with chefs, with activists, with public servants, with small farmers to devise the ways in which food can be a driver for economic and social development in that country. So I see a lot of potential there. What else can we do? All of us, of course, we can eat better. Less beef to reduce the environmental damage that our consumption is producing. We can eat local, we can eat seasonal, so we can reduce the fuel consumption of the food that we eat. But we need to go beyond that. We need to go beyond our personal choices, and we need to be more proactive in society. What I'm proposing is an innovative social movement with civil society at the front of it, with an innovative civil and new civil society that has two main objectives. One, put these issues on food systems at the top of the development agenda. Number two, counterbalance the asymmetry of power that big companies have right now in deciding which public policies are better for us. I propose a civil society that works with journalists, uncovering how the power of the money of the food industry influences politicians and regulatory agencies. I propose working with lawyers in strategic litigation against big companies so we can demand to know what we eat and how that harms our bodies. I want to work with creative storytelling so we can engage the public, moving beyond being a foodie to really addressing the issues that are important in the food system. I do it now from a think tank where we work, we generate knowledge, and we propose public policies for a better governance on sustainable development. We want to be that think tank of the future, and we've been working for that for years, to be innovative. The final goal of all of this is to have a government that sides with citizens, that sides with the planet, that sides with biodiversity, and sides with workers, not necessarily with the big interests. That's getting new institutions to govern the food system. And that would change everybody's life. And that's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you.